Hey everyone, it's time to talk about the Game Awards, which happened on Thursday. I imagine most people have moved on at this point, but I figured it was a good enough time to give my opinion on them, what I've thought of them in the past, and what I liked and didn't like about the show this year. I think the Game Awards has sort of come to occupy an interesting spot for the industry, being at the very end of the year, where you can have some potentially interesting new announcements come out, and that's really why I watch it more than anything. Award shows usually are not my thing. I can't stand the Oscars. I have given it a shot most years, and I just can't do it, even if I really like some of the movies that have been nominated, or have won. So I don't really put as much stock into awards ceremonies as other people seem to be doing these days. But I'll still give my opinions of the show overall, because that's one important thing to note. The quality of the show is not necessarily dependent on what wins and what doesn't. Because if it was just about the awards, the show wouldn't have been 3 hours long. So I guess this is my top 8 list of hot Game Awards opinions. Coming in at number 1, my general ambivalence towards the nominations this year. Yeah, this is a completely subjective point, but I feel that because I didn't really get around to playing some of this year's biggest releases, I don't really have any investment or stake in what was nominated. And maybe it's just me, but I kind of feel like in years past, there have been more eclectic games up for nomination. That might just be me misremembering things. I'll put the lists on the screen and you can decide, but having 2 games with 8 nominations each, it really kind of makes you assume that, they're just going to sweep. Either way, if you love God of War and Red Dead Redemption, you're probably pretty happy with the outcome of things, and that's great, good for you. But really the only opinions I have regarding award nominations and wins were Monster Hunter World. In my opinion, Monster Hunter World is not an RPG. I don't believe it should have been nominated. I think it is more of an action game, so I would not even put it in the category that it ended up winning. I'm surprised Xenoblade 2 was not nominated. I'm not saying it should have won because I have not played the other games that were in the category, but I found that one to be a little fishy. Really the only other opinion that I have is that I don't believe Life is Strange 2 should have been nominated for anything because only 1 episode of that game has been released thus far, and I don't think that you can really judge the game yet. There's no reason why they couldn't have just waited until next year when all the episodes will most likely be released and go from there. Because you can't really judge if the game has a great story or is a game for impact, whatever that means, when we've only experienced more or less the beginning of it. It would be like nominating the early access version of a game, or just the first 2 hours of one. So I don't really agree with that. That's kind of the one thing that stuck out to me as very strange. No pun intended. Moving on. Point number 2. Not waiting until the year is actually over. This is my biggest problem with the Game Awards, is that they don't actually wait until the new year to hold the show or to even nominate the games. This tends to mean that there are a few games that come out that do get good reviews, do get good press, and they don't get nominated until next year. I find this frustrating and weird. I don't understand why they don't just wait. That's what the Oscars do. That's what most shows do. For film, you definitely couldn't get away with holding your ceremony in the middle of December, or in this case, early December, because most of the Oscar bait movies are coming out, in the last 2 weeks of the year. I mean, imagine if, some indie developer dropped a game on like New Year's Eve that ended up being really, really good. It's disqualified because they've already held the awards and you'll have to wait until next year. Not everybody agrees with me on this, but I see no harm in just waiting a short time. Hold the show in February or March. There's absolutely no harm. Number 3, this is a positive, pretty good announcements this year. I don't know if the announcements were as good as they were last year, because last year there were a lot more sequels or AAA announcements made, but here I thought it was pretty cool that we got to see a lot of new games, a lot of smaller games. There were definitely some bigger ones mixed in. I think that my standout announcements were Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, because that really came out of nowhere. That kind of started off the show in a good way. Mortal Kombat 11, the Outer Worlds trailer, and my personal favorite announcement of the night, which was Persona 5 coming to Smash Brothers, because honestly the show We'll get to it later, but I found the show to be a little too long. I was kind of losing interest by the end of it, and boom, that announcement, that really brought a lot of the fire back for me personally. So that was a very well put together trailer, and it's pretty amazing to have something like that coming out only about 30 minutes before the game was going to be available for sale. A very interestingly timed announcement on Nintendo and the Game Awards part. As far as announcements that I did not care for, that really has to go to Dragon Age. That trailer was just way too little, way too late in my opinion, and not really worth discussing. All of my friends who are into the series, no one's brought it up. We've talked about other things from the Game Awards, but we've not mentioned that. So I won't really talk about it here. But overall, good announcements, and that actually ties into my next point. Number 4, the Epic Games Store collaboration. A lot of the announcements that we saw this year were tied to the Epic Games Store, which is a new digital platform that Epic is launching. There is a lot of speculation about how this is going to turn out, because Steam has really thrown a lot of their goodwill in the toilet over the last few years, and people really feel like there needs to be a better platform, not for consumers, but for game developers, because Steam is just becoming a cesspool. It's very hard to get your game noticed on Steam, and some competition would be a good thing. There's no harm in having multiple clients installed on your computer. I don't know why people make such a big deal out of that. But really, Epic needed to prove that this new storefront was going to have things worth buying on it. And by having so many games announced here that will be on the platform sooner or later, that's a very good start. So I'm going to give them credit. It was a good strategy working together like this. Next point, number 5. Where was Death Stranding? I don't really know if I can criticize the Game Awards for this too much, but Death Stranding being there has been something that people watch the show for. I think that's fair to say at this point. And the fact that it wasn't until like a few days before that Kojima basically said he wasn't going to be there, and then there wasn't anything about Death Stranding at the show, I think that probably disappointed some people. I would say I was disappointed by that, but my opinions on that are more related to Death Stranding's marketing. You know, I don't really think this is the Game Awards' fault. If there's nothing to show, there's nothing to show. But Death Stranding is approaching that point where you gotta really show something of substance, because a lot of people come up to me and they just don't get it. They don't get the point of the game, and I say, that's totally fine. I don't blame you if you've seen the trailers and you don't get it, because they haven't really given us that much to work with. So I'm going to include that point here, but it's not really a major issue. Next up, number 6, rapid-fire award toss-outs and odd pacing. There were multiple times during the show where Jeff Keighley was just rattling off nominees and wins, and there was absolutely no fanfare given. No one accepted these awards. It was very awkward, and this isn't the first time that that's happened, I believe. The show is 3 hours long. I don't see why these can't be worked in more naturally, especially given that some of those awards, they're not small awards. It's best game in the category. You know, we're not talking about those esports awards, which I'll get to later. These are awards that people are watching to see, and someone should have come by and accepted them or something. They should have just paced the show better, because it did feel long. Not as long as the Oscars, but longer than I would like it to be. I think they could have really trimmed things back and still been able to give out the awards in a timely manner. I don't see it as an impossible task, but, that's Jeff's problem. He's going to have to figure that out for next year. Next point, why are there esports awards? I don't really get this. It was okay last year when I think it was just best esports game and, best content creator. But now there are so many, and, again, these are awards that were mostly just thrown out there real fast. You didn't have any time to process them. And I don't really think these matter. I think that if you want to have esports awards, have an award show for esports, I guess do something like ESPN does. They felt very out of place here. And I'm not going to fault Sonic Fox for this, but him accepting that award was probably the most talked about thing. I think it's probably the most memeable thing, so I don't really have any issue with that happening, because I think that's probably going to be some good press for the Game Awards overall. But it was kind of a surreal moment. I mean, the guy's had a lot of success. It was fun to watch him at EVO. and it's cool to see someone like him honored. But I don't think that we need as many awards as we had. I think we can just have esports game, esports player, and I guess content creator, although that was, in this case, easily the most laughable award. When they show the nominees, they're all just people streaming Fortnite, and that makes me wonder, what is the criteria that they're using for a trending gamer or a content creator, or whatever they want to call the category? Because there are so many people on YouTube or other aspects of media that if you asked me, I would have very different lists of who I feel have been some of the top content creators. And I think that streaming is just not, Fortnite streaming, just call it best Fortnite streamer. Why don't they just do that? I don't think that the category is totally pointless, but this year it seemed totally pointless. And here we are, we're at the final point, the 8th point. Stop showing film clips and stop bringing in filmmakers. I don't get the point of this. It has made sense sometimes if you have someone like Guillermo there who has sort of been related to the games field, but I don't understand that you're bringing in people to promote films that don't have any connection to video games. You're bringing in actors or directors that, they don't really have any involvement in the field. There are certainly enough people to present awards out there who actually have connections to the games industry. I don't really see what the point of bringing the Russo brothers in, the Duffer brothers, although I guess they were announcing something, so that makes some sense. The cast of Alita Battle Angel, which is a movie I actually intend to see in theaters. I don't know if it's going to be good, but I think it looks dumb in a fun way. But I don't need to see like a 30-second clip that it's not a full trailer. It's just a very short and awkward clip. I don't think these enhance the show at all. And again, this is kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about wasting time. I think that having these film segments cut, even though there was only one of them this year, I think there were 2 last year, I think these could be done away with. I think we could bring in presenters who have more of a connection to the industry. Maybe the musical acts could be trimmed, although that's something that I think they've done a little better this year. I think that they just have to figure out a way to make the show have as much content in as short a time as possible. And that's obviously very tricky when you are juggling both awards and announcements and interviews. And I like the interviews. I do appreciate that you'll see a trailer and then you'll actually have some talk about what did we just see, what can we expect. That's something I like. And that's my list. It's not really a cohesive list. It's just my opinions. I have enjoyed the Game Awards overall, not every year, but I understand why Jeff Keighley wants them to exist. I think it's ultimately a good thing for the industry to have some kind of ceremony like this. I don't put a lot of stock in awards. My opinion and your opinion is truly what matters. Just because something wins or doesn't win, it doesn't make it better or worse. And there have been plenty of times where awards have been a fluke. I think look personally no further than the first Game Awards. I haven't felt that way about any of the winners since then. So I think I will leave it at that. Please let me know what you feel about the Game Awards in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Hopefully there will be more videos soon, but obviously the holidays are going to interfere with what I've been doing. I'm very excited about some of the projects I have in the works. So please subscribe because there will be more stuff coming. Thank you. Have a good day.